that we got 95% of our tax draw. We were a little concerned about that because of the delay in the taxes being due. So we felt very good about that, and that was very positive.
Anything else? Any other? No. We don't have any old business, so we'll move right on to the new business. Consideration to approve the agreement between Tipton Community Schools and KSAC for 2020 and 2021. Tipton Community Schools has been a member of KSAC for a number of years. This is the annual agreement between the two that is presented for approval on an annual basis. It is recommended that we approve the agreement between KSAC for 2020, 2021, and I need a motion to do that.
Real quick, Dr. Blazes, I think that's probably been your first introduction to KSAC.
Mm-hmm.
You got any comments, or you feel like you're up to speed? And
Yeah, I feel like it's pretty good, and we had Kevin had allowed me to go to the June meeting, and so the July meeting was yesterday. We talked a lot about the grant and applying for the grant, and I think it seems like a really positive organization.
that said, I'd make a motion to approve the agreement with KSAC.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the annual agreement with KSAC. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Mr. McNew, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Next is consideration to approve various board policies on first reading. You've had a chance to look those over. A number of board policies have been submitted for consideration. Many of the changes are in response to changes in state and/or federal law. It is recommended that the board approve the policy changes on first reading. I need a motion to do that.
So,
A motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Mr. McNew, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Next is consideration to approve a COVID-19 resolution. Indiana Department of Education, Governor Holcomb, and other state agencies recommend the passage of this resolution, suspending school board policies conflicting with waivers and extensions during the COVID-19 pandemic. It is recommended the Board of Trustees approve this resolution, so I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Mr. McNew, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Consideration to approve Tipton Community School Corporation reopening plan, COVID-19 pandemic, skip one, no, I didn't skip. COVID-19 global pandemic forced widespread school closings last spring in order to flatten the curve and lessen the rate of infection. As part of the statewide reopening plan, the Indiana Department of Education, Indiana Department of Health, and the Governor's Office developed the in-class COVID-19 Health and Safety Reentry Guidance document as a roadmap for school districts throughout the state. Tipton Community School Corporation developed a plan using the in-class document as a template with support of our reopening task force consisting of teachers, parents, administrators, local health department officials, Tipton Community School Corporation nurse, food services, building and grounds, and transportation. Tipton Community School Corporation reopening plan is a fluid document that will continue to change. The reopening task force will continue to meet throughout the school to update the plan as needed. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve the Tipton Community School Corporation reopening plan as presented. Need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Mr. McNew, how do you vote?
As long as everything that was discussed in the work session is followed, I have no problem with it. I vote aye.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next is consideration to approve Tipton Community School Corporation virtual plan. Due to the COVID-19 global pandemic, some students and parents are concerned about returning to traditional school. For these students, Tipton Community School Corporation will offer two virtual options. Both options use Tipton Community School Corporation instructional staff. Option one is software-based using options from Memorandum with Tipton Community School Corporation teachers facilitating the lessons. Option 2 uses Google Classroom with Tipton Community School Corporation teachers teaching the lesson with the same pacing as traditional Tipton Community School students. Both options will require a strong Wi-Fi signal and the use of school iPads or MacBooks. Tipton Community School Corporation virtual plan has been reviewed by the reopening task force. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve the Tipton Community School Corporation virtual plan and Admentum as software vendor. Motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Mr. McNew, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Next is consideration to approve a memorandum of understanding between TEA and Tipton Community School Corporation. As part of the reopening plan, employees are encouraged to not work when they do not feel well. In that spirit, we have developed a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, between Tipton Education Association and Tipton Community School Corporation to suspend attendance incentives and revise procedures for transfer of sick leave days for the 2020-2021 school year. Need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Okay.
A motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Mr. McNew, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Next is consideration to approve the Assistant Technology Director position and job description. Due to COVID-19 pandemic, the need for additional technology support is necessary as we continue to deploy additional student devices and virtual learning options. To meet this challenge, the position of Assistant Technology Director with a new job description was developed. This new position would replace the current elementary technology aide position that is currently unfilled. This position will be posted both internally and externally. It's recommended that the Board of Trustees approve the new position for the Assistant Technology Director. Need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. McNew, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Next is other matters to come before the board. We have anything to tell us? No. Advisory committees coming up. We have Business Affairs Committee coming up next Monday on the 20th at 5:30.
Change it.
We will, there,
You
two
did
of us won't be there, we have a livestock auction.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you want to change it?
We can change it. Did you have a date that was talked about?
No, I just, because of the fair, uncertainties with the fair.
Sure.
We are having a livestock auction on the 20th. So Randy and I, neither one would be able to be here. I
Oh, no,
don't know
that's fine.
about Chris, but
Sure. We can change it. Do we want to talk about that later, or just?
we can do that now too.
Okay.
Is another Monday
Pretty
work
much
for
free
you,
after
or?
that.
Okay.
I'm pretty much free after that.
Yeah. Yeah, I can do whatever. Just not that Monday.
I get it. Do you want to do the following Monday, perhaps?
Sure. The 27th?
Does that work?
Who else is on that committee?
Does that work for you, Chris?
You are. Oh, it's not Chris,
it's
it's
Gary.
Gary
No, it's
Johnson.
Gary.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine.
We
Okay.
switched, I forgot we switched.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
We'll do that the 20th.
And then the Facilities Technology Committee meets on August the 17th. In the meantime, we have graduation coming up on the 25th. School office is open on the 27th. And August 6th, Brian's already covered this, but August 6th is Teacher Work Day, and August 7th is Students Report. And next on our agenda is comments from the community. We had one sent on Google Docs. Katie Beamer asks, for all students attending Tipton Community School in person, will they be required to wear a mask all day? If not, what are the requirements to be able to come back to school?
Again, the masks are recommended at this point. So we are asking, students, if they're not able to social distance, that they would, mask up. But again, they're not required, they are recommended at this point.
Okay. Mr. Ankrum, I believe you have the list.
Yep, let's do it. Beth Wolford.
Okay. I've got several questions. So my first question, have we contacted anyone, like legal counsel, about can we offer some sort of a consent, like a release of responsibility for coming to school? I mean, I worry just a little bit about teachers. Personally, I would prefer not to wear a mask just because I want to be able to see my kids. I want them to see my face and see my mouth. And I've had kids that have been hard of hearing in the past, and that's an important thing. But I worry at the same time, if I don't wear a mask, what is the legal ramifications if a kid in my class were to get it? I wouldn't want, you know. So that's my first question. Have we thought about that? If not, can we think about that? Can teachers have their own thing that people sign? Second, I know that we're going to have this staggered entry and exit. So are all teachers, middle school, high school, elementary, all teachers are going to be expected to be here at the exact same time every day and leave at the exact same time? Because in the past, elementaries had to be here at 7:40, whereas middle school and high school always came at 7:50, and then we left at different, our contracted time was, we could leave at a different time. And then what's our official start time? Is it 8 o'clock? Is it 8:15? Because if I have kids from 7:40 to 8:15, that's 35 minutes that I've got one kid that I've got to keep busy with something, but then I may only have another kid that just comes in at 8:15. So I've got to try to plan what I'm going to do in those 35 minutes of this staggered entry and exit time. And last question, I kind of caught the tail end of it during your work session, but I'm curious as to how this virtual option will work for teachers. I know you said, Dr. Glaze, that there's a possibility of two different, I don't know, where you have a teacher who has just online, and then there's some who will have kids in class and online. I'm just curious when that will be decided and how that will be decided, who gets kind of stuck with that, doing both. So those are my questions. I hope you can remember. Okay. Can I stand up here while you?
As far as the legal ramifications, that's something that we can look into. I've heard of some other districts that have asked this question, but that's something that we can get a definite answer on. As far as the start time, what we're looking at is, particularly depending on where you are, whether you are in a secondary building or elementary, it'll be, if you're in a secondary building, it'll be built into your homeroom time, be built into your reading time when those kids are coming in. Elementary, they're going to be in the classroom. So again, there's probably going to have to be some sort of activity or something like that we're doing. I think that our goal is to be able to start at 8 o'clock. I mean, I think that's always going to be our goal. But depending on how well that waived, departure works out, it may be later, depending on, what it looks like at the very beginning of the year. Hopefully, we'll get down to a routine, and 8 o'clock will be our start time. We did have a conversation that we would have everybody try to be here at the same time and leave at the same time, and I think that makes good sense, kind of evens the playing field just a little bit and makes it kind of work out for everybody. I do anticipate that, dismissal will be a little bit earlier than what it has been, so the arrival is going to be also a little bit later. So we're just going to have to be really flexible with that. That's going to be a challenge until we get a system set. And we will get a system set. You're just going to have a little patience with us for those first few weeks. Okay. The other side of that, with we really don't know until we get information back from this questionnaire. And what the questionnaire will ask is, give us student names, give us, what your preference is. And once we get that information in, then we can start making decisions. Right now, it's a little premature to even, consider, what that might look like until we actually get some numbers. Once we get those numbers, then our task force is going to get together. We're going to have conversations about that. We do have a meeting on the 22nd, so we'll have some conversation about that. We'll probably try to do one maybe the next week when those survey results will come in, and try to make it all make sense. It's not going to be perfect, but we'll certainly try our best to weigh all the needs. It's going to be challenging. I am not going to tell you it's going to be easy. It's going to be challenging, and it's going to be an interesting year, but we'll do our best.
And I think you mentioned earlier, right now, 20% are leaning virtual, but that might not be only 10% in elementary and 30, and
Right.
we don't have all the numbers in yet.
Right. And 17% is based on about 400 responders. So it's hard to know. And there will be some, some will decide, if their friend is going to do virtual, if they're going to do virtual, if their friend's going to do in person, if they're going to do, there's going to be some of that going on. Yeah, well, hopefully we can get something concrete here in the next couple of weeks.
Erica Newcomb.
Hi, I'm Erica Newcomb. I have 3 kids. They're all in high school now. Yay! So we made it that far. Pretty excited about that. I have a couple questions as well. Regarding what we were just discussing, the percentage that have said they're probably going to be virtual students this year. Is there a deadline to decide that? Is that also fluid? Like, can we start school and see how it goes and then say, we're not feeling comfortable with the measures that are taken and we've decided to do it virtually? Or is that going to be like, well, I hate everyone in this class, and so now I'm going to stay home and take it at home? Those are some
Right. situations. Yeah, and really what we're trying to do is, if they're taking virtual, it has to be COVID related. That is the way it all works.
Okay.
And the other side of it is, we really, we're kind of giving until September 1st
Okay.
as kind of that drop dead.
That's a
This
month.
is when I'm making a decision, mostly because of contractual, the contractual side with our vendor, to make sure that we have all the licenses covered, and then we can move forward. Now, we are asking, once they commit to virtual, we're asking them in the secondary, I think I put 9 through 12 a semester. They may be able to change at the 9 weeks in the other buildings. If you're going to do it, we don't want this moving back and forth, because that will be a very big headache for everybody.
That's chaotic.
And so if that's the option they chose, we want them to at least be there 9 weeks or a semester, depending on the level.
Okay, that's good. Because I'm an attorney, I want to know things like, it has to be COVID related. What is your definition for that?
Again, part of the questionnaire that we're sending out is, what is the reason for your decision to be virtual?
Okay.
And so we're asking whoever fills out that questionnaire,
Yeah.
that they're being truthful, that is the reason.
You have to say, I'm
Yeah.
nervous about, okay.
Yeah.
Then you also spoke about attendance incentives. I heard that when we were going through the minutes. What are we doing about that? Because I have a kid that gets sick easily. She's immunocompromised, but she also worries about, getting the letter in the mail that says,
Yeah.
your kid's missed so many school days, and now
Well,
she's.
yeah, what we were doing there will be a bit of a really kind of a moratorium on that for this year.
Okay.
So we, again, what we don't want to do is set up a bunch of attendance incentives,
Right.
and then trying to get kids to be here.
Sure.
And that's counterproductive. So there will be a moratorium on the other side of that. We just want to make sure that, if the kids are here, they are healthy.
So we're just gonna say, relax. go if you're healthy, stay home if you're not.
That is really what we're saying, yeah.
Okay.
Which is, again, different than what we've ever really said.
Right, right.
I sent my kids to school with a bucket.
but,
You're going.
yeah.
Your teacher will
Yeah.
call me, I promise.
They do.
I had to be near death if I missed school.
Yes,
so,
yes.
yeah.
Okay, I have another question about high school and how it's gonna look as far as coming in and dismissing in the morning. So I have a kid that drives, and she's wondering, is it gonna be like everyone coming in at once? Are we all still going in the one entrance like they have in the past for safety reasons? She's like, that's kind of counterproductive. Do we have a plan for that?
That's going to be a discussion in our administrators meeting on Monday.
Yeah?
And that's on my agenda, and because there will be some changes there, but I can't say specifically what there will be. Again, what we're trying to create is a situation where kids won't congregate. Now, we know that kids will congregate because that's
Right.
what kids do,
Yeah.
but we want to try to avoid it as much as we can.
Okay, David, do you have anything else to let me know? Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Kelly Lightfoot.
Erica asked most of my questions, but I guess my only other question I have is, God forbid that the state shuts down again and we have to completely close school. Is the plan to be more the virtual learning, like you're discussing the student, the 20% of students that are thinking of doing virtual? Would that be the plan for the entire school then, to shift to that way of learning, or?
Do you mean to shift to the software?
Right,
No.
yes, okay, because
No.
I guess the way we were doing it the last 9 weeks,
Yes.
it was a challenge for,
Yes.
I
Yes.
think everyone would
Yes.
agree.
Yes.
So is there a plan to, if we have to do that in a different way?
Well, we're looking at, and one of the things we're going to talk about with our task force next week is what that first professional development e-learning day might look like. And I have some ideas on what we might try to do, which would help us to maybe do the distance learning a little bit better. The other thing is we are part of a consortium of schools that is actually, this is through Indiana University. They're seeking a GEAR grant, which is the governor's big federal grant, where they will provide professional development for us for virtual learning. So that would be another option if they were a successful grantee. So we are looking at that, and we're always trying to look and see how we can get better at what we do.
Great, thanks,
Yep.
that's it.
Shelby Hill.
I just wanted to say thank you for allowing us to ask some questions. So my question is, are we allowed, I love to go visit my child at lunch. I love to see the environment that he is in. Is that going to be an option this year for all this going on?
It's really not.
Okay.
And I hate that. We
Yeah.
don't like to be closed. We don't like that, but honestly, all the guidance we're getting is telling us that we have to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just like to see the environment that my
I
child's gonna be in.
I totally get it, and I ate lunch with my kids. I totally get that, and I hate that. I don't like that. I want our buildings to be open. I want our buildings to be, I mean, we want parents in our buildings, but this year, and maybe second semester we can do that depending on how things go. Again, just as fluid as this plan is, it could also change as far as our ability to have field trips, our ability to have people in. I mean, hopefully we can get to a point where those things can happen, maybe second semester, but we're always going to look and try to make the plan work as best we can. But again, nobody likes doing that, trust me.
I get that.
Okay.
So as you just mentioned, the fluidness of the
Mhm.
decisions that's going to be had.
Yeah.
It was mentioned that at 9 weeks, there could be a possibility of switching, whether it be from in-person to virtual or virtual to in-person.
Mhm.
If a new recommendation or it is in turn required to wear masks in between those 9 weeks, would we be able to pull our children in that case?
We would just have to look at that on a case-by-case basis. A lot of it comes down to, depending on what you want, and the way that our contract works with our vendor. So it would be the reason. So we would just have to kind of look at that on a case-by-case basis, and depending on what virtual option you wanted.
Okay.
Okay?
So we have children in 3rd grade.
Okay.
And one of the questions on our mind was recess. Recess is a time for our children to just explode.
Oh, sure.
How is recess going to be looking?
We're going to have zones on the playground.
Okay.
So we're going to ask classrooms to stay in a particular zone. They may rotate those zones throughout the week so that because each zone is going to have different kinds of things for them to do,
right,
obviously. We're going to ask that, again, if kids are sneezing or something, their nose is running or whatever, we will have a hand sanitizer station out there so they can clean their hands. We're going to try our best to clean the equipment as well as we can, but we're really going to rely more on hand washing before and after recess in order to keep kids clean. But the zones will allow us to do some social distancing, and also will allow us to do contact tracing. So we will know if we have a positive in a class, where they were and what potential things they were on.
Okay, so you're going to be doing continuous testing as well?
Well, we won't be doing testing, but
Okay,
we'll do contact tracing.
Okay.
So if we do get a positive, we will know, okay, Mrs. Smith's class was in, zone 1 on the playground. We need to make sure that we are going through and cleaning that equipment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I have one more, well, I guess 2 more questions if I have time. Arts and crafts, gym time, will those still be incorporated in the day-to-day lives of the kids?
That is our goal. Now,
Okay.
the difference is going to be that those teachers, except for PE, are going to go to the classroom because we want to keep the kids
Okay.
in their environment and community as much as we can. So that's going to be the difference. Now, we're going to encourage PE universally to be outside when they can be, weather permitting. We encourage classrooms to be outside, weather permitting. Again, that idea of giving that flexibility to the classroom. So that's going to be the difference. But yes, we want them to have those experiences. They're just going to be in their classroom versus in an art room, music room, or
Good.
computer. Okay.
Awesome. Last question. We are doing our best as parents to keep this a positive, upbeat as possible in this troubling
Yes.
time.
Yes.
I'm trying to word it in a question. I want to make sure that our children are not being force-fed fear in this situation.
Sure.
Because as a parent, that's our job, is to make sure that they have healthy emotions, are able to cope with this kind of environment and
Right.
these situations. And I just want to ensure that my child is going to be uplifted at school and not force-fed
Yeah.
fear.
Well, our whole goal and what we've talked about every time with our task force is we want school to be as normal as we can make it. And that's always going to be our mindset.
Okay.
And again, there are going to be days that will be more challenging than others, but that's our goal. And that's really what we want. Our kids, it's hard on our kids to be home in March. We don't want to have to repeat that. It's gonna be some challenge for kids to come back. So we need to make this, the best place we can make it with, the guidance and safety that we need to have.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't think, no one wants to create an atmosphere of fear. I mean, we want this to be a great place,
Okay.
and no matter what we're dealing with. So,
Yeah. All right, thank you so much for your time. A lot of grace all around.
all right, thank you.
Hey, Dr. Glaze, can I add one thing real quick?
Sure.
I feel that comment especially, it's close to home. And one of the reasons I asked the question that I did during the work session about individual teachers being able to make their rooms as safe as possible was because, we're experiencing a new normal. When we go to the gas station, there's that plexiglass shield. We're going through the drive-through at the banks. Everything is just different right now. And I think if the teacher has the freedom to make that classroom as safe as possible for everyone, there's going to be a relaxed feel to the room. The teacher's going to be relaxed. The student's not going to pick up on any kind of fear or apprehension on the part of the teacher. I think we can make this work. We just have to make sure that the teachers are comfortable and have as much in the way of our assistance or whatever we can give them as possible.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Got another?
Yep. Katie Beamer, another question or no?
Okay.
Good. Christy Boyer?
I just have a few questions. Are there going to be one-to-one computers in the lower elementary this year?
Yes.
Okay, good.
We
'cause
just
that
purchased
was-
iPads.
All right.
Hopefully they'll be in the next week. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Awesome. And along with that, if we happen to go all online like we did last semester, will there be like an across grade system that happens for a group of kids?
I think the part of the conversation that's within our task force is going to be how we handle that situation if it comes back. Now, I did find out from the Department of Education today that they're going to provide some content for us. I have no idea what that content looks like, but they've had their specialists working on this content. So hopefully it will more so standardize what's being taught. I think our teachers did an incredible job. I think every teacher did an incredible job, in March trying to make it all work. I think now we have the opportunity to make it better, and so we're going to work to do that. And if that means that we need to buy some different software or some other things like that, we'll figure that out. And we just want to make it as good as we can make it.
Okay. How are you guys stating with sports and how things are going to go with that? Is that mostly coming down from the state or?
The state has given us the guidelines for how sports will work right now. And as long as we go to phase 3 on August 15th, as long as that is allowed, sports should be business as usual. Every extracurricular should be business as usual.
Okay, good. One thing that I've been thinking a lot about is my background's in special ed, and I think a lot of people through COVID are jumping on these bandwagons of doing certain things a certain way because they want to protect themselves from COVID. But I think really we should think about a bigger picture of like the Disabilities Act, because no lawyer is going to take a COVID case at all. They're just going to say, there's no standing behind that, there's no background. But Disability Act cases will always win. So I think that's just something to keep in mind. I know my husband's company is not considering those sorts of things at all, and I think they're going to get themselves in a lot of trouble. So just a word of advice.
Okay.
Also, quarantining classrooms. I've heard some different chatter about if a student gets COVID in a classroom, that the whole classroom would be quarantined, or different things like that. And I have 4 kids, so like, to me that just seems like a nightmare that, when you think about how many kids my 4 kids have touched, that's
Right.
probably the whole corporation,
Right.
so.
I think that, again, that's a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
None of this is cookie cutter. I mean, a lot of it's going to be situational, a lot of it's going to be making a decision right then and there and hoping it's the right one.
Okay.
So there's nothing in a policy that we would take an entire class out
Okay.
unless we had a good reason to do that.
Okay.
And now, we would definitely inform a parent and make sure that you're watching for symptoms and making sure that, but we do have that need to inform, but, depending on the situation, you know, there may have to be some quarantine. You know, I don't anticipate it'll be a whole class.
Okay. Because I don't want to be in
But I
quarantine
don't,
from now
yeah.
until like May 1st or something.
I don't want to, I don't want
Just
to.
take- hey, just take him to Walmart,
I don't want to
Christine,
say
and get it over
no.
with.
Well, Kate already put the seatbelt in his mouth. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Did everyone?
We're shutting the whole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike is and Kelly's and Beth.
You're
Yes.
the barometer.
All of
right?
you, yeah.
Is Luann still here?
Nope.
Okay, that's it.
Can I be added real quick?
No.
No, not at all.
Okay, so initiation, here we go.
Okay.
So I've got a request that when the parents and things ask about the mask,
Mhm.
and it is gonna be recommended,
Mhm.
but I think that they need to know that as staff members, we've also been told that we have the right to request them in our individual rooms, because we have a lot of staff members that are 55, 60, 65, 67. I don't think we've got anybody older than that, but old with serious health conditions. We also have rooms where, like in my room, we've got tables, so literally kids are going to be sitting rubbing elbows with each other, and like 30 kids in the room. And so, yes, it is recommended, but in different scenarios, I just want you to follow that up, because I don't want some parent to only hear you say, oh, no, it's only recommended, and then their child go home and go, oh, no, my science teacher says I have to wear one.
Right.
So just,
Yeah.
so, you know, like it's in the plan, but you didn't read the plan, not yet, it'll be out
Right,
there.
right,
Yeah.
right, right.
So-
Well, and again, that's a, you know, I think we said that earlier in the work session. Again, you know, if we do have a teacher that is, you know, has a condition where they do need the students to mask up, then yes, that's just the way that we want to protect our teachers as well as we want to protect our kids. So,
And I
again,
think it's gonna be the way we present it too.
I agree,
Like,
I
it's not
agree.
gonna be the fear or that, it's teaching them the right way, you know, like, and when I put this mask on, I wear it to protect everyone else so that I keep my germs in.
Mhm.
So if we teach it the right way.
Right, I agree, I
I
agree.
think it's gonna be a.
And this is, you know, this is a challenge that everybody's dealing with. And that was a topic of conversation at the CASIC meeting yesterday. You know, that situation, because everybody is recommending masks, but in certain situations, they will be required, so.
All right, thanks.
So that's sort of, I mean, you won't know that until you get to that classroom. So for like these third grade parents who are trying to decide what to do with their kids,
Mhm.
and they're not gonna know until August 7th what their teacher's policy is for that. We're just gonna say, yeah, go figure it out, or is there a way of letting them know what their teacher expects ahead of time?
That's probably something we can discuss next week on how we would do that. I think that a parent should know that
Yeah, I
going
mean,
in.
especially for little
Well, like
kids.
Yeah.
for registration signage, we know who our kid's teacher is gonna be, what does this teacher recommend or
Right, right.
require?
I think
So
that's,
we're not
I
sending our
definitely,
kids in, just be
no,
like,
yeah,
"Have
I
a good
definitely,
day."
I definitely think that's something we can do. Yeah.
But every child that's present is going to be required to have a mask.
Yes.
On their lanyard,
Mhm.
somewhere on them,
Oh, they are.
yes.
I like that.
Yeah.
Oh, they were provided
And,
with that.
yeah.
Because there'll be a point where, at some point, I'm assuming in this building, any of these three buildings, that somebody's gonna say, we need to mask up now.
Right, right.
So that child's gonna be required to have that mask. I know that's gonna be really, really hard for little kids. It's gonna be hard for some high schoolers.
Yeah.
They're not gonna have it. It may be, their flip-flop may be broken, maybe
She's
their
already
shoe, I don't know.
Congregate the heck out of high school, so.
Yeah. I know it's gonna be difficult,
Yeah.
but I think,
For the older kids, the middle school kids, at least they switch classes, but like the elementary school kids, that's all day.
I know.
So, you know.
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
just a
you need
learning
to know that
process.
before you
Right.
make your decision.
Right,
Right.
because I went to my pediatrician to ask questions, you know,
Mhm.
and he wasn't even in the room for 5 minutes, and of course my child was required to wear a mask in there. And he said that my child touched his face 10 times in that 5 minutes, because he's readjusting, and guess what, he's gonna be more susceptible to other viruses, because he's touching other things, no matter how many times we clean.
Well, and distracted from what he's supposed to be learning.
Exactly.
I just think everyone's going to have to, a lot of the teachers, the staff, they're just going to have to constantly remind everyone to use some kindness, be patient, give everyone some grace, because we're all going to have to learn how
That
to.
should be our new motto this year.
Yeah, exactly.
Our teachers will all be carrying Yetis around.
All right, with no other comments, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Mr. McNew, how do you vote?
Well, before I vote, I want to thank Mr. Emsweller for his leadership, especially during this COVID crisis. He did an outstanding job, and I would like to thank Dr. Glaze for being here. I think we've got an outstanding superintendent moving forward, and with that, I vote to adjourn.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for your wonderful questions.
No, they were
They're all
great.
good.
Thank you.
All great.
Thank you. And
Hey, Kate.
there will be an opportunity for additional questions.